We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
AVIXA's Pro AV Industry Sales Index, it dropped to 52.1, which is the lowest since early 2021.
Well, honestly, Tim, I don't think that there's as much to fear with this article as we're making it seem. I think that the fact that we're still above 50 and we're still on the growth side in an economy that's going the way our world economy is going at the moment, I think that really speaks to how important our industry overall is. And the fact that we are still growing, even if it's slower, it's not as gangbusters, I think there's a lot there to say, hey, this is still an industry to watch.
So I'm going to pull on your analogy there. It's not rainbowing and clouds and doom and gloom, but there sure as hell aren't any rainbows either.
I guess this is a case where we'll have to agree to disagree.
I don't agree to that.
Neither do I.
A rollable LED display you can pull down just like a projection screen. AVIXA says the industry is stagnating right now, and Logi launches an AI sensor to monitor the health of your meeting rooms. All that and more next on AV Week. This is AV Week, episode 702, recorded Friday, January 31st, 2025. Roll up your display. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of the biggest AV news and information we have gathered. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered, first and foremost from Parts Unknown, Dawn Mead. How are you, ma'am?
Very good, Tim. Thanks for having me, as usual.
Absolutely. Also, my brother from another mother, Mr. Joel Carroll from Bursa. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Tim. Always good seeing you, even though your shirt's a little lacking today. It's okay.
If you're not watching the video, my shirt is certainly muted compared to Joel Carroll's. If you want to see his, you can go watch the YouTube version. And last but not least, Brittany Delgado. Brittany is with Midwich US. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. If you're not familiar, not a story we're doing, but it's certainly a story in the industry. Starin, which we all know here in the U.S., they have rebranded a number of years ago. They were purchased by Midwich Corporate, and this week they are rebranding to Midwich U.S. So I am trying very hard not to say Starin, Brittany. So first story comes to us kind of from AV Network, but also from AVIXA. AVIXA's Pro AV Industry. The AVIXA's Pro AV Industry Sales Index indicates sluggish growth, quite frankly. November's AV Sales Index is out. It dropped to 52.1, which is the lowest since early 2021. Now, this index, it measures month-over-month sales growth in the commercial AV sector, remains above the no net growth, quote-unquote, threshold of 50, indicating slow but continued expansion. Now, the AV Employment Index, which also tracks the hiring trends in the industry, fell to 52.9. So both of them are just slightly above net zero. This, according to the report, reflects stable but stagnant job growth. Seasonal budget spending and rising tariff concerns are key factors listed impacting sales, while hiring challenges have leveled off. Despite the slowdown, a strong overall job market and steady demand suggest opportunities remain for companies that can navigate these economic shifts. For a deeper look, AVIXA's full industry report is now available. I'll have Mitchell put a link to this story from AV Network. Joel, we're going to start with you on this. We've got supply chain challenges. We've got tariff concerns, depending on not just in the U.S., but the kind of the reciprocating factors of those. Where should AV businesses and the folks that are decision makers in corporate and education, where should they be preparing in 2025 and 2026?
I think there's a big shift happening in the AV space, right? We're always been hardware. We've been hardware. And we're going to continue to see hardware, right? That's not going to go away. But a lot of the companies that I talk to, what they're starting to talk about is what can I do to take that existing facility, that room, whatever it is, and ensure it's going to work 5 years and beyond into the future. So I think there's a lot of things we can look at. Software definitely is a way to go. And a lot of the manufacturers are already going that route with adding software packages for their hardware. And I think another thing to really consider is managed services offerings that a lot of the current companies aren't offering, whether it be the manufacturers themselves or whether it be the AV integrators. There are some that are doing it, but that's really kind of new in our space. Like we've done it, but we've never done it, I want to say, successfully as an industry overall. IT has, they've got it nailed down. But if we just look at AV.
For years.
Yeah, exactly. So I really think those are two ways to look at things. What can we do to take software to extend maybe even the product that we currently have installed? And I think people are doing that now with MTRs and other things, right? What can we also do to provide services for myself to the channel that then can provide it to the end user, or the channel has the ability to provide to the end user?
All right. We say that we can't say where Dawn works, but she does work for an end user decision maker, as it were. So Dawn, talk to manufacturers, talk to integrators, and where should they focus to stay relevant to folks in your shoes?
Well, honestly, Tim, I don't think that there's as much to fear with this article as we're making it seem. Mm-hmm. One of the things they did mention in the article is that there's a lot of seasonal trends affecting it. And I can tell you, if we're looking at the last quarter of the year, we're looking at November, we're looking at December, all the schools, all the education money is already spent. They tried to get all that done over the summer when there's no kids there, right? And those of us that are in government, that are in some of the facilities and organizations that have a fiscal year that ends at the end of the year, our big budgets have been spent for the year. And yeah, you might get that last minute push of let's order a dozen displays or something to use the last of our budget so we get it back next year. But all the big projects at that point in the year are finished. It's January, it's February that a lot of our companies get the big push because, hey, fresh new pot of money, let's go. So, honestly, I think that the fact that we're still above 50 and we're still on the growth side in an economy that's going the way our world economy is going at the moment, I think that really speaks to how important our industry overall is. And the fact that we are still growing, even if it's slower, it's not as gangbusters, I think there's a lot there to say, hey, this is still an industry to watch. I do agree with Joel, looking more into software and managed services. Those are areas we're coming to. And, look at user experience. I know we've talked about it for a while, but at the end of the day, my customers internally at my company, they don't care which sexy gray box you have. They don't think it's sexy. It's a gray box that has some lights on it. They want the room to accomplish what they need the room to accomplish. So it's up to me, people like me, and outside consultants to determine what our customers need the room to do, design accordingly, and then partner with our vendors and our manufacturers to make that happen. So I don't think it's all rain, clouds, and gloom and doom. I think we're still doing okay. There's still a way to go, but I think we're on the right track.
So I'm going to pull on your analogy there. It's not rainbowing and clouds and doom and gloom, but there sure as hell aren't any rainbows either.
But you know what? That just makes it a normal day. It's a normal day in AV. Let's keep on smiling,
And to your point, Tim, though, when there aren't rainbows, there are opportunities, right? That's the one thing I think that article did miss out on is what are the opportunities that we as an industry can capitalize on and run with.
Brittany, you sit at a very unique spot, especially on this panel between manufacturers as well as dealers. So from your perspective, where do you see, as Joel points out accurately, what are some of those opportunities?
Well, I really also just kind of want to, really back up what Dawn was saying, that this isn't all doom and gloom because we're still a growing industry, and even on the manufacturing side, distribution side, and across any industry, you really want scaled growth. I think it's an unrealistic expectation to see year over year triple digit growth and all these, booming numbers, because at some point it's going to come back down, So I think we're in a really solid position for AV. In terms of opportunities, and coming from that unique position of the distribution arm, is we're in this spot where we need to not only help our manufacturers grow, but we also need to help our integrators grow in order for us to succeed. We're dependent on them in that realm. And I think a lot of things that we can do here specifically in the US is historically we've been kind of slow to adopt new technology, been weary of technology that's being, tested overseas. Let's embrace that. Let's see what's happening overseas for tried and true, and bring it over here and see if it's functional. Not saying it's always going to be that way, but we should, and we should embrace it. We should also really keep to the core basics of customer service. I mean, things get so hectic sometimes, we get so crazy busy that we forget really who is paying our bills at the end of the day. It's going to be the customer. So double down on services for them, step up your game in terms of your customer service and your outreach. If they're not talking to you, they're talking to someone else. So
just for anybody that missed it again, if you're not watching the video, Dawn's the one who pays the bills on this program. So,
well, the higher ups of mine, but yeah, exactly. Give us what we need. Help us out.
All right, prepare for Dawn and I to have a little bit of fanboy and fangirling here for a second. Primeview has unveiled the ReVolve LED roll-up display. Pause for a second. I have known Dawn for a very long time. Both of us have been wildly excited about this very prospect for, good Lord, 10 years plus. They are calling it the world's first scalable, ruggedized, scrolling LED screen. Think back if you are a certain age and you had somebody pull down the map in your 5th grade classroom. That's what this is, only it's an LED screen. It's designed for boardrooms, classrooms, and showrooms. The motorized display can extend up to 10 meters and disappear when not in use. Has ultralight GOB or glue onboard materials, pixel pitches as fine as 0.7 millimeters, which means you can get awfully close without seeing some of those pixels. Offers a high resolution solution for modern spaces. Primeview says the display, which took 3 years to develop and holds 185 patents, is already being installed in over 150 offices globally. Dawn, you're the one who gets the kickoff on this. Where do we see this?
Oh my gosh, Tim, everywhere. Now, to be fair to those listening and watching, we were excited when OLED came out because that originally was
100%.
Talking about in the future we'll get rolling screens. This is an OLED. This is, just direct view LED, but it's still exciting and it's still sexy. I see this. Yeah, I see this so many places. I just recently finished a facility where we have this fabulous room and it's got windows on one side and glass wall to the hallway on another side and some big art thing over here. And there's really nowhere to put a display, unless you want to go and put in a drop-down screen and a projector, which is still a viable solution. There's no sexy factor there. Corporate boardrooms, lobbies, anywhere that you just really want to impress people. That's darn impressive. If anybody follows the link to the article, they have a video on there. Or if you just go to the Primeview website, they have a video. They show the screen rolling up while it's lit. Wow.
Yep.
You can have it already playing when it comes down. I mean, see, that's mind-boggling. That's the dream. And I just really want to find places in my company to put it. Is it TAA compliant? Can I do that?
It also goes back to your to actually both you and actually you and Brittany and Joel also talked about customer experience on the last story. This, oh my goodness, screams customer experience. End user experience. Absolutely.
Yeah, if you want to impress your customer, all you got to do is look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Brittany, how does this change how we design, how we integrate AV in classrooms, in boardrooms, in spaces where, Dawn already mentioned a number of places where this could go, but how does that change how we design and how we implement?
It changes a lot of things, and really quickly, just some quick background. I come from display technology. I cut my teeth in AV doing projection. So, roll up projection screens all day long, know all about them, heavy with LED manufacturers and the technology. And this is just absolutely changes everything. Before, in order to consider an LED wall, you had to make sure that it can hold the weight because the wall is what was important. And now this eliminates the wall. So I just absolutely seeing these going in those high-end spaces. I mean, let's be honest, I'm pretty sure since this is exclusive, this is going to be a very high-end product from the initial until we have more manufacturers who can catch up to this. But just the big boardrooms with the windows, these end users have paid for these spectacular views, and then they don't want this big LED wall, blocking that view. And the technology, just to think of the pixel pitches. Sorry, guys, I'm geeking out a little bit. Being able to roll onto one to each other and come back down is just, it's very, very exciting. And especially because in the LED realm, it's been a race to get to the finer pixel pitches, you know, and now they've gone and done something completely different and innovative, which is exciting. So think high-end office buildings. I'm thinking, you know, spectacular lobby spaces, even, you know, places like Vegas. You know, let's look at that hospitality hotel. It can go anywhere.
Well, and Brittany, you just made a point that I completely ignored or forgot or it just went over my head. The fact that those as fine of a pixel pitch as 0.7 millimeters, and that again is the distance between each individual pixel. The fact that it's rolling up on itself is remarkable as well, because I mean, imagine if obviously you can go to a higher pixel pitch because that would give you more space between the individual LEDs, and then obviously you could certainly roll that, but it's the fact that they got down to 0.7 for that is actually remarkable as well. That is a really good point.
I remember we were all impressed when 0.9 came out, so now they have 0.7. So
yeah, 0.7 that rolls. Joel, how does this, we've already asked, how it changes, and where it belongs. But when you look at this, what sort of technical challenges does this solve? What sort of operational challenges does this solve? Like when you're looking at this, where do you see, this solves X, Y, or Z problem?
Yeah, and well, I think Dawn and Brittany both alluded to a couple of them. When you look at a lot of the multi-purpose spaces, let's say, where the technology should never be seen. Nobody wants to even know it exists until the time comes that it needs to exist. This is the ultimate solve for that, right? Like there's projectors and you can do that and that's pretty cool, but then you have to do lifts and everything else is still kind of there. To me, this sits in front of that window. I don't have to worry about the light and stuff that's coming behind it like I would with a projector. It just takes that extra splash and fills that need where we just don't have something right now. So from the technology standpoint, I'm looking at it, yes, user experience, right? Like how does this actually fit in those places? Hospitality, I think, is huge. Obviously, I don't know pricing, but I'm sure it's going to have to be more of a high-end, let's say, hotel ballroom, things like that initially. But they notoriously don't have good places to hang anything. They really don't have good lighting. The lighting is always shining on the screen. This also helps to solve for a lot of those very difficult to display issues. I mean, as an integrator many years ago, you'd walk in and the first thing you say is, I want the greatest, the most amazing thing ever, and I want it to not exist and nobody can see it. And I want to hang that TV, because it's a flat panel, on that piece of glass. Now, I know there is a TV company that can do that now. But that same token, it's kind of like you wouldn't be able to get to this size. So this does provide some neat opportunities. I'm looking forward to see when it gets installed. I'm definitely looking forward to see where it falls from a cost standpoint, because it does provide a unique user experience.
And I do want to see the first installation there.
I was going to say, and I, on behalf of like stagehands and stage crew everywhere, if they start using these in Broadway shows and theaters, oh my gosh, just have it roll down when they need the screen on stage and roll back up. It's going to be fantastic.
Okay, so Dawn brings up one that I didn't even think about. The fact that you have a number of Broadway productions who have migrated to direct view LED for what used to be the back scrim, right? I am old enough, and I was in theater long ago enough that we had to paint our own scrims, on muslin. And you had what you had, and Wizard of Oz, you painted the yellow brick road, for the back scrim, and depending on what you were doing. But they've migrated more towards direct view LED, so they could dynamically change the scrim, dynamically change the background. But Dawn actually brings up another really good point. They could have a scrim in 1 second, and the next second they could completely get rid of it. So,
yep.
Yeah. It's a really good point. Last story comes to us from Logitech. They have unveiled ahead of ISE, honestly, but we'll get to see it in person next week, or this week. It's posting on Monday. They've unveiled Spot. It is a cutting-edge occupancy and environmental sensor. Hold on to that environmental part. It's designed to enhance workplace efficiency and well-being. It is a battery-operated device. It automates room reservations, monitors air quality, which is where the environmental part comes in, and provides real-time suggestions to improve comfort and energy savings. Spot pairs with Microsoft Teams, Zooms, and other workplace platforms while feeding data into Logitech Sync for IT teams to optimize room usage. Using AI-driven insights, the sensor helps businesses reduce energy costs and enhance employee productivity. Has a 4-year battery life and simple wireless installation. Spot is expected to launch in the second half of 2025 with service plans starting at $199 per room annually. Brittany, start with you on this. This is more and more smart sensors and smart sensors in workplace management, not in homes. How do you see smart sensors like this kind of reshaping the workplace management, reshaping AV integration in workplaces as there's this new push to return to the office by more and more companies?
Yeah, that was going to bring up my point is, we're entering the landscape where returning to the office or even returning to at least a hybrid model is becoming more and more popular. And I could absolutely seeing this being so beneficial for end users in terms of determining space. We've heard some horror stories about companies coming back and there's not enough space in the buildings, and so something like this could really show that end user what spaces are being used properly, which ones are not being used properly, which ones can be converted to elsewhere based on usage. And it's really important because, we had that big shift back in 2020 where everybody had to adapt to being apart. But now we got to come back together in some cohesive way that works for everybody. So I think this is going to actually be a very interesting thing. Just looking at the science that they're using behind it and also discussion of the oxygen levels, that's really interesting to me. We hear all the time about, don't want to pick on casinos, but casinos pumping certain types of oxygen into the gaming floor to keep people going, things like that. So obviously this exists and it is a real thing. So I applaud Logitech for kind of taking that step to help these, smart buildings, continue to actually be smart about it.
Joel, kind of a same type of question, but what sort of challenges are dealers or organizations, integrators going to face when they start implementing solutions like this at scale? Not onesie, twosie, but you got 100 of these and you got to deploy that, in the next week.
Well, I think the at scale in this, there is some simplicity to it, simply because I don't have to run power, right? I have a way that I have to connect it to a wireless network of sort. It was interesting, the wireless network, and they were talking to about that. I think the difficulty of the at scale is getting it into the Logitech system for it to be able to be managed and be able to know what room is what and be able to set those details. So you're typically going to either have somebody from the integrator do that, or who owns that data? Is the company that's having the install done, do they own that data? Do they give a login to the integrator to be able to do it? So I think that's part of it. I think there's another factor to it that is going to be hard to start selling initially, of concerns of privacy and what type of data is going to be taken and what type of information is going to say Joel and Tim were in that room. Obviously, there's not a camera in here that we're aware of, doesn't tell us, but what's to say Logitech wouldn't be able to provide additional benefit by using their cameras in that space and pull some of that data in later. So I think it's cool. It's just, I think we're going to have to, as an industry, know what this does to be able to have those discussions with IT, talk about privacy concerns, and then in turn, we have to educate the IT at that end user how to talk to their users in their spaces about privacy concerns. So we don't just walk in and go, what's that, right? I mean, how many places have you all walked into already and somebody takes a sheet and covers the camera or flips the camera around that's VTC, nobody's in the room? Just a matter of making sure people are educated and understand what it's doing and how it can actually benefit them. Because I think it's a huge benefit.
So Don, Joel, I did not tell him this, but he leads right into my question for you. Again, Dawn is an end user. She works for a large corporation that on different levels have different levels of security needs and concerns. How does something like this play there?
Well, that was going to bring up one of my two only points of hesitation about this particular product. Because when I first read it, I was like, that's cool. But the privacy concern is there, and specifically the fact that it uses a wireless network. Because I have a lot of spaces within my corporate enterprise where I can't use wireless, period. Things have to be hardwired, and you have to have visible hard wires. There's a lot of restrictions on what we can and cannot do. And so something like this, they may be fine with, okay, it's this, temperature, this much oxygen in here, and there's this many people with no identifiers as to who those people are, if they're okay with that. but they definitely wouldn't be okay with any kind of Wi-Fi, any kind of wireless, and with that info living elsewhere, which kind of brings me to my second concern. It's an awesome product. And Logi, I love you. I'm talking in my personal Logi camera right now as we do this from my house. But not every site, not every building, not every enterprise or company is a Logi company. And the fact that you're kind of, if you want to use this, locked into that ecosystem, when a lot of us are trying to go to a more product agnostic system so that we can use this company or that company that is approved by our customer or is something that that legacy site has been using forever. It doesn't give us that flexibility. That said, if you can measure it, you can manage it. I hear that all the time from the hires up, from the IT folk, from everybody. And this provides you with hard metrics on a lot of information regarding room use that we can measure and therefore we can manage. So, from a facilities front, from an enterprise, a knowledge base front, that's great. As long as we can handle that security concern, the Wi-Fi thing, and maybe give us a little more agnosticity with it.
Maybe an API coming out, going into somebody else's management system.
And you bring up a good point on that. We have so much data now, Tim. What do we do with it all? And I think that's something I hear as people talk to me about analytics, even from our product. What do we do with all that? Because I got data here, data there. And even if I get into somebody else's cloud system, what do we do with that data? Like, how does it actually benefit? That's another thing I think that we as the AV industry really need to start educating on, or in ourselves in many cases, manufacturers learn, hey, I can monitor this. Well, why is it valuable? And how am I able to help aggregate that to something that's meaningful for that user?
I heard a saying not too long ago, data is the new oil, which, it's incredibly valuable. You have to drill into the data to get the value out of it, and then you got to pump it and do something with it. If you strike oil in your backyard tomorrow, you can't put that in your car, right? You have to take that to a facility that then processes it and give you something usable, whether that's, oil for your car, gasoline, whatever. Data is the same way, right? You have to take that data, analyze it, process it, and then it's going to be something useful. But Joel's right. We do have a lot of data usage in the industry. We just got to figure out what to do with that and how to process it. So, all right, gang, thank you so much. Joe, AV Dawn Mead, how do people connect with you?
Well, as you just said, you can find me on almost any of the socials at AV Dawn. And you can find me on the other socials like LinkedIn as Dawn Mead, just like the General in the Fort, MEADE. And I'm always glad to talk to folks.
She is 100% always glad to talk. Joe Carroll from Mersive, how do people connect with you or Mersive?
Easiest way to connect with me is just through email, jcarroll@mersive.com. Socials, I'm the Joel Carroll, if you want to grab us there. And if you have any questions about Mersive, sales@mersive.com, and my amazing team will make sure you're always taken care of.
All right, very good. Brittany Delgado, thank you, ma'am. Good to have you on for the first time. How do people connect with you or Midwich US?
Well, you can find me at brittany.delgado@midwich.us. And more importantly, ISC is coming up, and Midwich, with our, headquarters being a UK-based company, we are going to have a big presence. So stop on by and visit the booth. It's going to be 3Q750.
Yeah, Hall 3. I will be there a couple of times hanging out with our buddy, Mr. Chris Netto. So you can go by there as well. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me anywhere. It's not very. Actually, you know what? I have gotten to this, at least in 2025. If you want to read something that I write about that has nothing to do with technology generally, you can find me on LinkedIn and you can connect me with it there. But go by the website, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others, including a brand spanking new EdTech, where Aaron Mayer Moran parses through the hype and what's not, quite frankly, in higher education. We've talked about ISE a couple of times. We are headed to Barcelona. Quite frankly, I'm recording this on the 31st of January. I get on a plane tomorrow. So by the time you actually listening to this, I will be fully ensconced in CET time, which is roughly 7 hours ahead of Central Time here in the States. But you can check out our socials. You can check out avnation.tv/ISE25 for all the coverage. Mitchell has been working his fingers to the bone, so there's tons of content on there already, so you can go out by there and check that out and follow along as we head to Barcelona for ISE 2025. If you're watching this on YouTube and you've seen Joel's fantastic shirt and you're tired of looking at Joel's fantastic shirt, you can go listen to this on a podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And if you're listening to this and you want to see Joel's fantastic shirt, you can watch the video on YouTube. So either way, go the opposite direction. But before you do any of that, go by the website, avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is Erin Marmoran of EdTech. The world of higher ed AV is growing rapidly. That's why each month we hear from the best and brightest from colleges and universities all over the U.S. Check out EdTech on avnation.tv or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.